Hello. So today I want to talk a little bit about life planning. What you can think about is some people feel like they are watching their life like a movie. They have what we call an external locus of control. This can often happen if, things just sort of happen to you or you live in kind of a state of emergency all the time. Now, most of us would say we don't want to live in this kind of state of emergency, but honestly, some people, whether they know it or not, find this sort of stimulating. They get some kind of they get energized out of this constant solving problems or this constant energy around this emergency state. So in some ways, the choices they make push them toward that state of constant instability and constant emergency. It would be a very hard thing to sort of diagnose yourself, right? Because you're inside your life and it's hard sometimes to see it from the outside. But, it's known that this is a choice sometimes people make. Now, it's not always. Every day things happen to all of us, and it's how we react to that, how we plan to avoid those things that really matters. So, what we want to talk about today is taking charge of your life, being an active participant in your life, not just watching your life like a movie. And for some people, this is easier than others, right? If you are part of lots of systems, and you're part of a transportation system where you have to wait for a bus every day to take you to the grocery store, and then you have to wait for the bus to take you back, or you're waiting for a check, maybe some sort of assistance or something. You're sort of at the mercy of lots of systems. So in some ways, these two things feel out of your hands, right? Your How you make money and how you get places can seem very, very distant from you because they're just things that sort of happen. Now, maybe early on you sort of set these things up, but now they're kind of on autopilot. So you don't really feel a connection to something you're doing and making money or what you're doing and trying to get somewhere. You're just at the mercy of these other things. And this can often be a precursor to having this external locus of control. There's lots of other reasons that can cause this, trauma and other things. But for our purposes, what we want to do is sort of look at it in the most simplistic way and then figure out, how do you get where you're going? How do you make choices and make a plan so that you can move forward in your life and you can push your life forward? And in many ways, this also will impact your self-esteem because, not only are you responsible for the good things in your life, but you're also responsible for the challenges. But I think if you can take responsibility for all of it and then work around it and plan and overcome, then you can feel good about it. So the idea is this life plan, how to get where you're going. So for some of us, it's knowing where we're going. That's the problem, right? We don't really know where we want to be. And that's something that, we have to kind of uh, address. So we all want success in life, right? This is a key tenet to sort of living is you want to be successful. Now, what does successful mean? Does successful mean that you spend the maximum amount of time with your friends and family and you have that, kind of quality time, that work-life balance? Is that success? Is success making a lot of money? Is success getting a job that you can feel really good about and it builds your self-esteem and you feel like you've really accomplished something? So for each of us, we're going to define success differently. So what you need to decide is, what does success look like for you? And then once you get it, understand that you've gotten it and be grateful for it and practice that concept of gratefulness and that concept of abundance, that you feel abundant because you have reached the success that you've defined. So, to be successful in life, you need to have a plan. Without a plan, your dreams will only be dreams. You won't be able to achieve these things, they'll just sort of be out there. And for many people, it's easier to have a dream that you can think about but not achieve, right? Because in moving toward achievement, the potential for failure grows. So as you move toward your goal, the potential for failure and the potential for success both grow. At some point, as you get closer and closer, the potential for success overcomes the potential for failure. But it's early on in the process that it's kind of a 50-50. Things are okay now. Why would I push it? Why would I risk it? But honestly, those people who you sort of aspire to, often they've had to take risks. And again, I'm not suggesting that you become a risky person, but I think when looking at your dreams, set a dream, make it attainable, and then move toward it. Don't just hold it up as something there. Make an action plan to get there. A life plan will help you turn your dreams into reality. It works because it gives you not just a destination, but also a way to get there. So the problem often is we know what our destination is. We have this vision in our mind, but we have no map and we have no way to get there. And what we need to do is give ourselves a map, which is the plan, and give ourselves a way to get there, which are the skills that you're going to need to reach that goal. Okay, so a life plan doesn't have to be complicated. It should answer two questions. What is your destination and how will you get there? So I want you to think about your life plan. So maybe you can look at a blank piece of paper and think about what you want. I have a life plan template I can send you, and you can use this as well. So if you take a minute to fill out the words and phrases portion of the life plan continuum. So this is just sort of ideas and brainstorming. What we're doing is we're starting from a very big uh, sort of balance of kind of a word map, and then we're gonna consolidate it. So before we get to where we're going, you have to think about where we've been. So this is a key element, and I would say this is often what stops people. So I consider myself very grateful. I try to practice gratefulness every day. Now, I have good days and I have bad days. It doesn't work every day. Some days I get down and I just can't, think about, that part of it. But the best thing to do is to practice gratefulness. So if uh, every one of us has had experiences in our life that have been uncomfortable or bad or even traumatic. But if you think about the continuum of time, you cannot go backwards. You cannot change those things. And dwelling on them in a way that re-victimizes you is not helpful, right? So if you can think about those things and think of them as steps that moved you forward, even if the steps were painful, right? If you think about a small baby, if the first time they fell down, they stopped trying, they would never walk, right? If the first time they hurt themselves or bumped their head or stepped on a Lego or something, they stopped, they would never get to where they need to go. And it's the same with you. If you get so focused on the past trauma, and it's not to minimize it, it's to stop letting it control you. So, what you need to do is practice gratefulness for the moment you're in. And sometimes you have to start small because sometimes your moment is not great. But if you're sitting outside in the sun and you can feel the sun on your face and you can feel it on your skin and in your hair and the breeze is blowing, even if you know your bills are piling up and all these terrible things are happening, practice gratefulness for that moment and know that everything that happened to you in the past brought you to that moment. And without those things, you wouldn't be there right then. And then slowly, what you can do is grow that moment and grow those moments. So if you think about it as a very tight spotlight on a stage, and then slowly over time you grow that moment. So it may start with a 30 seconds of gratitude. But what I would try to tell people, it seems like sort of a big concept about the secret of happiness. The secret of happiness is gratefulness. So be grateful, and even if it's in small moments, and then slowly expand it and slowly expand it. And then before you know it, you'll start to be grateful for more and more. And even the things that are challenging. You have a big electric bill. I'm grateful for the fact that I have electricity. I'm grateful for the fact that I have heat. I have a home that I'm living in. So all of those things, even the bad things, you can start to turn on its head. And the key to this is because now you can move forward because you've released all of those bad feelings. You're not focused on the past trauma. You're seeing the past trauma as a stepping stone, maybe a painful stepping stone, but a stepping stone that got you where you are today. So this is really important and maybe the hardest thing, but it's something to practice every day. And again, those kind of little baby steps, those small things, and then grow from there. To see your life how it will be in the future, it's helpful to see how your life has been in the past. By creating a life map, you can see patterns in your life that helped you find where you should go. Look backward, connect the dots, and project them into the future. Don't focus on these dots, but connect them to the future. That's the key. Often, these dots become not a dot, not a small moment in our life, but they become a boulder that we can't get around. And what you need to do is to shrink that back down to the perspective of what it is. All things being equal, even the traumas in our life, all things being equal, it got you where you are today. Okay, before we get to where we're going, we need to think about where we've been, and I want you to take a moment and fill out the life history sheet. It's nothing I'm going to look at. I just want you to, if you're there with a blank piece of paper, just fill out a blank piece of paper, thinking a little bit about your history, and what that means to you, and some of those words that come to you or some sentences that come to you. Okay, so this is kind of where we are in terms of um, an example, maybe. So you can see there's a timeline here. There's lots of words. Now, for me, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense because it's not my life, right? This is just an example. But I can see different things. The grandfather died. The father was diagnosed with, it's hard for me to read, Hodgkin's. Then the dad dies. So it's all of these things, and these are not necessarily these are not good things, right? These are maybe traumatic things or at the very least sad things. But then we see some other things. Anne was born, some things about safety and security, loving each other, uh, being calm, college, a sorority, speech and theater. So some of these things are, exciting. So you can kind of see some goals emerging here, I would say some themes emerging here in this uh, kind of map. So before we get to where we're going, we need to think about where we've been again. And you filled out the life history sheet, and now I want you to choose three things about your life that wouldn't have happened if your life took a different path. They wouldn't have happened. And so, what are some of those things? So again, just kind of look back on uh, your life plan, or if you have just a blank piece of paper, and think about some things that wouldn't have happened if your life took a different path. Look at the decisions you've made. Could planning have changed the outcomes? Own your past so it doesn't own you. Again, it's not to focus on it or to, churn up all of these bad feelings again. It's really just to make sure that you are acknowledging it and then putting it to bed. You're not erasing your history. You can't do that, but you're accepting it. You're living with it. So you have to understand yourself and strengths to know where you're going. Not knowing your destination is a mistake because you may end up in the wrong place. You need to know where you want to go so that you don't waste your time and effort. Knowing is not enough. You must have a realistic plan that pays attention to the conditions influencing your success. Uh, so if you're trying to sail a boat, often, you can see across the water where you want to go if you're on a lake or a small bay. But in a sailboat, it's not a direct route, right? Because you have to follow the wind. The wind has to push you across. So, in sailing, you call it tacking, where you have to kind of go back and forth because the wind is not straight pushing you in a straight direction. So, when you're sailing through life, how do you chart a course? How do you figure out where you want to go and then how you're going to get there? That's the charting of the course. That's making the plan. Now, just like in sailing, you have to pay attention to what's happening. If you chart a course and say how you're going to get there, but you don't take into account the wind, the tides, the weight of the boat, all of these different things that could happen or change in your experience, then you may have a problem and you may not be able to get to your destination. So the idea of planning is a great one, but we can't end there, right? We have to know that the plan has to be able to take into account all different influences. So there may be wind, weather, tides, other boats, your ability, right? So maybe you need to learn some skills to get to your path. So often, we find that people come to us and they have a very, very lofty goal, which is a good thing. But, they want to be a lawyer, but they haven't finished an undergrad degree. So it's not impossible. Many people do this. But what are the things we're going to have to do? What are the skills you're going to have to gain to get to your final destination? So we can look at this map, tacking, heading in the right direction. So this is the sailboat, and this is how you have to figure out how you're going to get to where you want to go. It's not always a straight route to get there. Sometimes the wind is against you. You can move forward, or you have to adjust to the environment. Sorry. You have to know the skill. You can't be afraid of change and keep your eye on the destination. You can often get distracted by the tactics that you have to take to get yourself where you're going, and then you end up in the wrong place. Now, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you can find happiness in a different goal and you can change your goal. But again, planning is about making decisions, not letting life happen to you. So perhaps as you're heading towards your goal, you realize that something else makes you happy. And you can make a choice, again, a plan to get there instead. So it's not about letting it happen, it's about making a plan, even if that plan is different than what you thought. So real life obstacles can be illness, education, transportation, family life. Every day we have so many things happening to us and so many uh, distractions from our goals. But I would say trying to refocus yourself, keep yourself focused on what your ultimate goal is. Um, is age an obstacle? I think this is, I put a question mark here for a reason. There's, people in their 80s who go back to school and do all of these things, run a marathon. So age doesn't have to be an obstacle. It can certainly be a challenge, but it doesn't have to be something that stops you. So I want you to fill out the life plan form, the U chart. So what I want you to do is you're going to have you in the center and all of the things around you. So find your life purpose. Your life purpose gives you meaning in everything you do. It helps you do what matters to you and makes your life fulfilling. Without a purpose, you may achieve much but feel empty inside. Take the time to find your purpose in life. What is your purpose? This is something that we're constantly seeking, and it can change throughout time, right? So maybe when, if you're a parent, when your children were quite small, that was really your purpose. That was really what your focus was. But as your children grow up, you need to be able to change your purpose and adjust. What can happen sometimes is, we open our eyes one day and our kids are 20 years old, and we made them our purpose. And now what's left for us? And how do we reimagine ourselves? So being aware of what's happening and changing as life changes, is important also. The size of your dreams has a lot to do with living in mediocrity. If your dreams are small, there's no reason for you to move past mediocrity. It's easier to just live a comfortable life. On the other hand, if your dreams are big, you have to move past mediocrity to make your dreams come true. So discover the big dreams in you. Dream big. Make short term goals. You know what your final destination is, but you also have to have milestones along the way. These are the things that are going to keep you on track. They're going to make sure that you are heading in the right direction, right? So making sure that these milestones really are that, right? We call them milestones because they mark the miles on the way to our destination. Now we have a sign on the side of the road that says, mile 23. But really, what we want to do is, in terms of our life plan, is create milestones that don't take us off track, but that measure our progress and keep us moving forward. And these milestones should also be something that encourages us, right? So sometimes in the beginning, you might make a half a milestone or a quarter milestone because you need to get some momentum. You need to feel like you're accomplishing it. So putting some easy goals in the beginning will get you going and build your confidence that you can do it. These help you know whether or not you're on the right path to reach your destination. Make sure that you recognize when the milestones are taking you off in the wrong direction. Take a moment to transform the U chart into some plans. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to keep refining. You're going to know your destination as a process. If you're like me, you're going to keep refining your destination over time. It's like zooming in on a picture. First, you see the big picture, but after zooming in, you can start to see details. Perhaps you can only see the big picture of your destination. And that's okay. Go in that direction. And as you get closer, you're going to start to see the details. You're going to see the things that are attracting you to this dream. And along the way, you'll find clues to make that picture clearer. It's about deliberate practice, right? There are things that we do deliberately every day. And what's funny is most of the things that we're deliberate about are not always the things that are the best for us, right? We have these uh like traditions or this pattern in our life. And some of those patterns are not the healthiest pattern. But what I'd like you to do is create a deliberate practice around healthy patterns. So create a mantra, something that, you remind yourself of every day. And maybe sometimes it's something that's encouraging when you're feeling low, or you're feeling like you can't do it. Create some sort of a mantra, a sentence, short, you can remember it, that you just encourage yourself with. Positive self-talk. We talked about this before. Creating a habit of being kind to yourself, creating a habit of compassion for yourself. Remember, we're always reminded to be compassionate to other people, but we're hardly ever reminded to be compassionate to ourselves. Create this new habit. Remain focused. Check in with your progress. You might have to alter the plan. Remember, it's not always a straight path to get there. Write down your updates. Celebrate these updates. This is part of positive self-talk, is celebrating those things that you did and you accomplished along the way. Ultimately, you are only accountable to you. You're the one who set the goal. You're the one who's going to measure the progress. A year from now, you'll wish you had started today. Often we think, oh, it's too hard. I can't get through school. I can't do this. It's going to take me too long. If you started today, a year from now, you'll be much closer to that goal. You'll be a year closer. So if your goal is a 4-year goal, well, now you're 25% of the way there. And some of your goals, a year from now, you would have achieved it. So don't let the size of your dream stop you.